How is your work-life balance? Could you use some working mom tips? Well, if so, then stick around because that is exactly what we're going to continue diving into today. This is part 3 of my latest series here, Work-Life Balance for Moms, where we're talking about my recommended tools and strategies to help us not just survive working motherhood, but really be able to thrive in working motherhood. I have 8 tools and strategies for you all. This is a 4-part series, and we will cover 2 strategies in each part. So let's get to it. So hey there, and welcome back. I'm Alicia from Alicia Cohen Designs, where I teach you intentional planning and productivity. If you're new around here, would you please do me a big favor and hit that subscribe button? It means a lot to me, helps support my channel, and it's just really nice to know that I have supporters out there. So please, give that subscribe button a tap, and now let's get to our topic. All right, part 3, woo! Here's the plan for today's video. First, real quick, we are going to cover some brief points just to make sure we're all on the same page for this video. Then we'll cover my next 2 tips that I have for us today. In case you haven't heard yet, I want to give you all a heads up. I have a freebie that I made for you guys. Woohoo! It's a set of pretty downloadable printables with encouraging working mom quotes on them. I really like them. I hope you will too, so stick around to the end of this video because I'll show you what the printables look like and I'll tell you the quotes. But if you just can't wait, the link to download the printables is in the description below. All right, now let's get to our first section of today's video. So, as I said, I want us to get on the same page here real quick for what we are going for. We are continuing to take a look at some effective strategies and mindset shifts to use in our journeys as working moms so we can feel like that we are able to create the lives that we want. We are where we're doing the mom thing and we're doing the work thing and we're feeling good about it, feeling like we are able to be productive, put our time and attention where we want it to be, and just generally feel sane and well, and like we are living the lives that we want to be living, where we are thriving, not just surviving. So we have already covered 4 other strategies in this series so far. If you haven't checked out part 1 and part 2 yet, I will link them over in the cards now so that you can go check them out. My goal for you with the strategies that I share in this series is to help you increase your working mom effectiveness. As I've said before, it's important to note here that being effective is not synonymous with doing it all. That is literally impossible. If you didn't catch the video yet, again, over in the cards now, where I talked about what it really means to do it all, then go take a listen to that too. And if you're brand new to my Working Mom series that I've been doing here and you haven't heard me talk about my definition of a working mom yet, it's just someone who's a mom who's also doing some sort of work thing. Could be full-time, part-time, it could be in the home, out of the home, whatever. But if you are a mom and you are doing something above and beyond your usual mom duties that is some sort of work thing, then you, my sweet sister, are a working mom in my book. All right, now for our first strategy. Our first strategy is doing a time inventory exercise. So there are a couple of ways that you can do this. The first is to Google something like 168-hour time inventory or just time inventory, something like that. And you can print out a page that has hour by hour a slot to fill in where you do every hour of the day all week long, because that's 168 hours. That's how many hours are in a week. So you print that out, fill it out. And I recommend that you print out 2 because what I recommend here is that you fill it out in 2 ways. One is fill it out in how you currently spend your time, how you actually spend your time, and then fill it out for how you would actually like to be spending your time. Now, just because you fill it out how you would like to be spending your time does not mean that this is going to magically happen. However, if you don't have the awareness and the mindfulness of what you're aiming for, it's going to be really hard to get there. So first is to just kind of spell it out. Look at what you're working with currently. Look at where you would like to be getting to. And then you can take a look at making some adjustments to getting yourself there. And if you don't know how you currently spend your time, then maybe take a week and fill it out day by day, or even fill it out morning, noon, and night, in the middle of the day and at the end of the day, something like that, just to get really honest and really clear on where is your time going. Because when we're doing the working mom thing, and if it's not going how we want, well, we need to take a good, honest look at the other strategies that I've already talked about in this series, but then also how are we spending our time? Where is our time going? And then we can also kind of look at like, oh, this is where my time is going, so of course XYZ doesn't fit in. Or, oh, well, this is why I'm constantly feeling like I'm in triage mode, putting out fires and running around in a panic because I have XYZ and ABC in my life, in my calendar, in my weekly hours, whatever. And yeah, no wonder my sanity is sucked dry because this all does not fit. So that's one way to do a time inventory, but I know for some people that is like way too intense and way too micro in terms of taking a look at things. So if you are that kind of person, then here's the other way I recommend doing a time inventory. Just write on a piece of paper the week, Sunday through Saturday, and then kind of account for what you do. And not in like a super specific way if that's way too stressful, but kind of make some blocks. Again, do this twice. So like, how much sleep do you get? What time do you go to bed? What time do you wake up? What do you do in the morning? How long does it take you to get yourself ready, the kids ready, whatever? And then how much time are you spending on work? How much time are you spending on maybe driving? How much time are you spending on meals, both the eating and the cleaning up from them, depending on if you work part-time, and some of the time maybe you have lunch as part of your job, but then some of the time maybe you have lunch with your kids or not, or, maybe because your kids are in school or whatever, but just kind of write out blocks of this is sleeping, this is getting ready, this is meals, and then, this is how I spend my time in the morning, on a weekday, on a weekend day. Just map all of that out. And again, if you don't know or you're kind of doing too much guessing, then fill it out each day. At the end of the day, or in the middle of the day, and at the end of the day, or morning, noon, and night, whatever works for you, just so that you can get really clear on how you're spending your time, and then do a second one where you are mapping out how you would like to be spending your time. All right, so that is my first strategy that I recommend, but why are we doing this? You're like, Alicia, what's the point of this exercise? This sounds like blah. Or maybe it sounds interesting to you. I hope it sounds interesting to you and you're excited about it and you're like, yeah, let's do this and let's get some insights. Woohoo. But maybe you're like, oh, this sounds like a chore and I don't want to do this. Well, if you can bring yourself to do it, my hope for you is that it will be revealing. You will, as I said, you'll see the current state of things, that, how it is for you and how that compares to where you would like to go. And then you've got point A and point B, and then you can start making a plan for what you're going to tweak in order to get there. But we can't achieve a new normal if we don't understand what the current normal is. And when we don't understand where we're headed, you can't hit a goal if you don't know what the goal is. And you can't really break down a goal into baby steps and what you're going to do to get yourself there if you're not really clear on what's going on. So, time inventory, please do yourself a favor and just do it. I think it will be revealing, help you be mindful, intentional, and just insightful into your own life. So that's my first one. All right, we'll continue with our topic in just a moment, but before we get back to it, if you haven't already, would you please hit that subscribe button? As I like to say, you subscribing is kind of like the gasoline for my channel. Keeps things running around here, so please help keep this puppy running and subscribe. All right, back to it. So then, the second one. Maybe you've heard of this, or maybe you have not. It is the rocks, pebbles, sand, priorities metaphor. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you haven't seen it before, you can easily Google it or look it up on YouTube. Just type in something like rocks, pebbles, sand, or rocks, priorities, or something like that. And if and when you do, you'll hear of a story of a professor who was wanting to teach a lesson on time management to his students. And he started his lecture by putting a large empty jar on the table, and he put some large rocks, about 2 inches in diameter, in it. And he said, "Is the jar full?" And the students said, "Yes." So then he pulled out some pebbles, and he poured them into the jar so that they filled in around the rocks. And he said, "Now, is the jar full?" And the students said, "Yes." Well, then he took out some sand and he poured that into the jar, and it filled in the gaps around the rocks and the pebbles. And he said, "Is the jar full?" And sometimes the story ends there, or sometimes I've heard it where then the professor pours in water. And, once you've gotten to the water level, then the example, unless you're going to, get super scientific with atoms and blah, blah, blah. But, if you're just going to go with normal everyday life, the metaphor stops at the water or the sand. So, the point being here that when we are looking at how we are spending our time and what we're spending our time on, our life is a jar, and we need to put in the rocks first, and then the pebbles, and then the sand, and then the water, or, whatever. And we run into trouble if we first put in the sand. And the rocks represent our big priorities that matter most. Pebbles are next in terms of priority importance, and then the sand, is the little things that don't really matter too much. But how often do we fill our time with the sand and then we don't even have time for the rocks? Now, this, truth be told, doing this rocks, pebbles, sand metaphor can be tricky. It can be very tempting and alluring to do the sand because maybe it's easy or maybe it needs to be done, quote unquote needs to be done or whatever. But when we are going to be living our best lives and really feeling amazing about this is when we actually take the time, take the presence of mind and the mindfulness and the intentionality to put in those rocks first. So, how do we do this? Well, it's really quite simple, but it's not easy. We do this by doing it. We do this by making sometimes hard choices between good and good. I talked about that concept earlier in this series, but we're not often making choices between good and bad. It's not like, oh, what do I want to do with my time? Well, this good thing or this bad thing. I want to help people or I want to do something harmful. No, that's not what we're usually choosing between. Usually we're choosing between something, and the example that I gave previously was like, oh, we're choosing between, well, do I want to join book club or do I want to get back into yoga? Both are wonderful things. Both are good pursuits. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of choosing between good and good because perhaps both do not fit into your life. And if you were to try to fit both into your life, then you would be sacrificing your sanity. So it's actually, it's like choosing between good and good and good. Is it the book club, the yoga, or your sanity? You choose. You can only pick two or one or whatever the case may be. So again, the rocks, pebbles, and sand metaphor, not easy, but it is simple. You literally figure out what your rocks are. And so, and then just do it. So take a few moments and think about, well, what are my rocks? And are those regularly getting into my life, into my jar or not? And if they are, awesome. And if not, well, what needs to shift so that can happen? Because unless we prioritize the rocks and plan them in, they don't just end up in our jar all on their own. They don't sprout little legs and hop on in there. So, we have to put them in there. So, how do we do this? We get intentional, we get mindful, we get clear on what the rocks are, and then we just go to work on it. And also we get realistic about what the rocks really are or really can be during this season. And maybe we want 27 things to be rocks, but maybe only 3 things can be rocks. And those other 24 things are pebbles or even maybe sand. So just getting super clear, super honest, and also super realistic. Yeah, that's what we got to do here. So, as I've said a few times now, this strategy is simple, but not necessarily easy. However, with intention and awareness, it can be done. And I say it's quite important for it to be done. So think about your rocks and start taking some small baby steps towards shifting things for yourself today. Today even. Like if you can, do it. Why not? Because when we're looking at work-life balance, working motherhood, and all that jazz, if it's not where we want it to be, and if it's feeling icky, the way we start to shift things is by doing things like this rocks, pebbles, sand metaphor for how our priorities, for how we're doing our priorities and how we're spending our time. So those are the 2 important strategies that I have for us today for how to be taking on working mom life and doing it in a way that feels amazing, where, as I've said in other parts of this series, we are not just surviving, but we are really, truly thriving. But remember, I promised you that I'd tell you about my freebie. So now we are to that part of this video, so let me show you it. All right, so again, I made downloadable printables for you all. There are 3 of them, and they're printables with encouraging quotes about being a working mom. So let me tell you them now. For the first one, we have this one here, this floral with a lovely quote from former U.S. First Lady Michelle Obama that says, "For me, being a mother made me a better professional because coming home every night to my girls reminded me what I was working for, and being a professional made me a better mother because by pursuing my dreams, I was modeling for my girls how to pursue their dreams. For our second one, we have this great quote from comedian Tina Fey that says, "I think every working mom probably feels the same thing. You go through big chunks of time where you're just thinking this is impossible. Oh, this is impossible." And then you just keep going, and you sort of do the impossible. And finally, we have this sweet quote from author Jill Churchill that says, "There is no way to be a perfect mother, but a million ways to be a good one." So if you want to have these for yourself, go click the link in the description below. They're formatted in the 8x10 size, and you can print them at home or get them professionally printed or whatever suits you, whatever you prefer. I hope that you like them and that they inspire and encourage you on your own working mom journey. As always, thanks so much for taking this time to spend it with me. That wraps up part 3 for today. Be on the lookout for part 4. Woo! Coming your way soon. And my parting encouragement, as always, if you are feeling overwhelmed today, remember that when it comes to planning and productivity, being intentional plus not giving up means that you are going to get there. Catch you next time. Take good care.